There's a Japanese technique so effective at eliminating mental chaos that some say it was originally classified. It doesn't require willpower, meditation apps, or motivational speeches. In fact, it works best when you're at your absolute worst. And the most successful people on the planet guard this secret religiously. What you're about to learn changes everything. Why mental emptiness is your most dangerous weapon against distraction. Here's what nobody tells you about focus. It's not about filling your mind with motivation. It's about strategically emptying it. The Japanese figured this out after World War II, when they had to rebuild everything from scratch. They discovered something counterintuitive. Peak productivity comes from controlled mental voids, not constant mental stimulation. They call it the strategic use of emptiness. And it's been weaponized by their elite ever since. Think about this for a second. Your brain processes roughly 50,000 thoughts per day. Most of them are completely useless mental garbage that clogs your decision-making system. Every time you try to focus on something important, you're fighting through layers of mental noise. That email you forgot to send. That awkward thing you said last week. What you'll eat for dinner. It's like trying to hear a whisper in a crowded stadium. The Japanese method doesn't try to shout louder. It clears the stadium entirely. Here's the tactical part. Between any to actions, Japanese executives deliberately create 5 to 10 seconds of absolute nothing. No phone, no planning, no thinking about the next move. Just void. Sounds pointless, right? Wrong. You're neurologically resetting your system. You're training your brain to be comfortable without constant stimulation. This means when you actually need laser focus, your mind doesn't desperately search for distractions. It already knows how to exist in silence. There's something darker here. Our entire modern world is engineered to prevent you from ever experiencing mental emptiness. Every free second, there's a notification, recommendation, an infinite scroll. That's not accidental. The more your mind depends on external stimulation, the less control you have over it. It's addiction mechanics. You need increasingly larger doses of distraction. The Japanese technique is the antidote. It reconditions your mind to be self-sufficient. Power law number 4 states, always say less than necessary. The mental equivalent, always think less than necessary. Your mind doesn't need to be constantly occupied. The more comfortable you become with mental voids, the more powerful your actions become when you choose to act. It's the bow and arrow principle. You pull back before releasing forward. Mental emptiness is drawing the bow. Focused action is releasing the arrow. Here's what separates high performers from everyone else. They've mastered the silence between actions. Most people fear empty moments. They immediately grab their phone, start planning, fill the void with anything. Elite performers do the opposite. They create emptiness deliberately, and that emptiness becomes their source of power. What would you accomplish if you could silence your mind completely for just 30 seconds before any important decision? This is just the foundation. What comes next reveals how to turn mental chaos into instant execution mode, and it's something most people never figure out in their entire lives. How redirecting anxiety transforms you into an execution machine. Let me tell you something that goes against everything you've been told about anxiety. You don't need to eliminate it. You need to redirect it. Japanese researchers discovered that anxiety and intense focus are neurologically almost identical. The only difference is the direction of mental energy. Anxiety is focus aimed at what could go wrong. Powerful execution is the same focus aimed at immediate action. Same engine, opposite direction. Think about it. When you're anxious before an important meeting, your heart races, your mind becomes hyperactive. You feel that nervous energy. Now compare that to moments when you were deeply concentrated on something urgent and critical. Same physical sensations. The difference? With anxiety, you're processing future scenarios. With focus, you're processing present action. It's the same neural machinery operating on different frequencies. The Japanese method uses something called directed tension. Here's how it works. When you feel anxiety coming, that mental discomfort, you immediately channel that energy into the smallest possible action related to your task. Feel the anxiety? Write one word. Feel the nervousness? Make one call. You don't wait for anxiety to pass. You use it as a starting signal, like an athlete who uses pre-competition adrenaline as fuel, instead of letting it become paralyzing fear. There's an interesting theory about this. Some researchers believe great historical leaders didn't have less anxiety than regular people, they just developed different reflexes for handling it. When pressure increased, they automatically converted it into rapid decisions. Not because they were brave, but because they trained a specific neural response. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's fear with direction. During the 1970s, Japanese behavioral scientists discovered that most of our procrastination happens in the first 5 seconds of a decision. After that, you either act or completely abort. But if you can pass that initial barrier with a tiny movement, your chances of completing the task multiply by 8 times more likely just by moving one muscle in the right direction. ENSYS Rule 39 says, there are no coincidences, and it's no coincidence that high performers always have specific rituals. They understood that mental control isn't about massive willpower, it's about micro decisions that completely bypass resistance. You're fighting the wrong enemy. Stop trying to have motivation. Start using neural geometry. Here's what most people never understand. Procrastination isn't lack of motivation. It's excess mental energy without clear direction. Like having a powerful engine, but not being in gear. You feel internal agitation, but it doesn't convert to external movement. The Japanese secret is creating a direct channel between internal agitation and external action. An automatic reflex. Discomfort, movement, always. But there's one more piece of this puzzle that ties everything together and gives you absolute control over any mental situation. And it's the component that changes the entire game permanently. Why? 30-second micro-rituals give you total domination over your entire day. The truth is, you don't need hours of mental preparation. You need 30 strategic seconds. The most successful Japanese executives use something called Katsudan no Shunkin, the decision moment. It's a mental control micro-ritual that activates your brain into absolute execution mode. And it works because it hacks a primitive brain system that's much older than procrastination itself. Let me show you how this works in practice. When you wake up and think, I'm going to start that important project, your brain immediately searches for objections. It's too early. I haven't had coffee yet. Let me check messages first. This isn't laziness, it's an archaic survival mechanism seeking to avoid unnecessary effort. Your brain is trying to protect you. The problem is it can't differentiate between real threats and uncomfortable tasks. The Japanese method exploits a loophole in this system. In the first 30 seconds after deciding to do something, your brain is still processing whether or not to resist. It's a neural window of opportunity. If you execute a specific physical action in those 30 seconds, no matter how small, you basically hijack the decision process before resistance sets in. It's like passing through a security door before the alarm triggers. Here's what you do. The moment you decide to do something, without thinking, make the smallest possible movement toward that task. If it's writing, pick up the pen. If it's studying, open the book to the exact page. If it's working out, put on one shoe. That's it. You don't need to complete the entire task, just the first micro movement. The brain interprets this as, we've already started, and resistance drops dramatically. There's something even more sinister here. In studies done during the 1960s, Japanese researchers studied Zen monks who could maintain absolute focus even under extreme stress. They discovered these monks didn't block distractions, they processed everything at such intense speed that the brain automatically categorized what was relevant. Like having an automatic mental filter. And you can activate this same mechanism. Power Law 16 says, use absence to increase respect and honor. But there's an internal version of this law few people know. When you withdraw your attention from mental chaos, when you deliberately absent yourself from internal noise, your mind begins to respect your commands. It understands who's in charge. Procrastination is just your mind disrespecting your priorities. The Japanese method reverses that. You've probably noticed that sometimes you can focus perfectly on something you love, but procrastinate on important tasks. Because your mind associates pleasure with focus. The trick is reprogramming that association. And that brings us to the final revelation that integrates everything and hands you the master key to absolute mental control. Type in the comments, control? What's the one task you've been avoiding that would change everything if you completed it? If this is hitting different, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. How the Japanese discovered that your brain is just noise you haven't learned to silence yet. Here's the final truth nobody wants you to know. Your mind is chaos by default. That's not a bug, it's a feature. Your brain evolved to constantly scan for threats, opportunities, and patterns. The problem is we're no longer running from predators. We're sitting at desks trying to focus on spreadsheets. But the brain hasn't updated its software. It's still running threat detection protocols 24/7. And that shows up as mental noise, distraction, and procrastination. The Japanese discovered something revolutionary. You can't stop the noise, but you can train yourself to exist comfortably inside it without being controlled by it. It's like standing in the middle of a hurricane and remaining perfectly still. The storm is still there, you're just no longer affected by it. This is what they call Seishin Toitsu, mind unification. Not meditation, not positive thinking, pure tactical mental dominance. Here's how it actually works. Your brain has what scientists call a default mode network. Basically, it's the autopilot that runs when you're not actively focusing on something. This network is responsible for mind wandering, daydreaming, and that constant mental chatter. Most people are controlled by this network 90% of their waking hours. The Japanese technique teaches you to switch it off at will. Not permanently, that would be neurologically impossible, but strategically, when you need it off. There's evidence that certain intelligence operatives were trained in similar techniques during the Cold War. The ability to maintain absolute mental clarity under interrogation, stress, or information overload. It wasn't about being tough. It was about having such precise control over their default mode network that external chaos couldn't penetrate their decision-making. Some call it mental compartmentalization. Others call it controlled dissociation. Whatever the name, the effect is the same: absolute dominance over mental state. Power Law 28 says, enter action with boldness, but the Japanese version is more precise. Convert discomfort into movement. Every time you feel internal resistance, procrastination, or anxiety, your brain is actually generating energy. The question is, will you let that energy become paralysis or action? The method doesn't teach you to wait for courage. It teaches you to act, especially when you have no courage at all. Here's the ultimate realization. Absolute power over your mind doesn't come from filling it with more techniques, more hacks, more strategies. It comes from emptying the unnecessary. When you master internal silence, procrastination has nothing to grab onto. It needs mental noise to survive. In the void, it dies. And you finally take complete command of your days, your decisions, and your destiny. This is the final weapon. Use it wisely. Type in the comments, silence. If you could eliminate one mental distraction permanently, what would it be, and why? If this video shifted something in you, hit that like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it right now. Disclaimer: this content is for educational and personal development purposes. The techniques presented should be adapted to each individual's reality. For mental health concerns, always consult a qualified professional.